In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to set up the basic drum beat. In the later tutorials, I'll add some additional bits and bobs to make it complicated and interesting, but you need to start off with the fundamentals, the foundation, and that's what's going on in this tutorial. At the moment, I have a kick, a snare, an open hi-hat, and a clap in a drum rack. So kick, snare, open hi-hat, and a clap. Nice and simple. The standard 4 sounds. Then what I want to do is change the grid size to 16ths, like so. And now I can draw in the drum beat. So the kicks go on the 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Taking note, remember the BPM in Tech House is normally between, say, 122 and 125, and I've gone for the most popular 123. In other words, there are 123 kick drums in a minute. Next is the snare drum. The snare drum goes on the 2 and the 4. 2 and 4. And then a hi-hat on the offbeat on the 8th divisions right in between the kick drums. Here, 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 and here. And then the claps also on the 2 and 4, but crucially nudged a little bit to the left. I'll show you what I mean. So you first of all insert the claps on the 2 and the 4, right where the snares are. But then the timing isn't quite right, so you have to move them a little bit to the left. Not too far. It should sound like it's happening at the same time as the snare, but if you do literally lay it down at the same time as the snare, it gets a little bit lost under the kick drum and the snare, which dominate it. So you have to move it a little bit to the left, not too far, and then it fits in perfectly. Maybe just a touch to the right, why not? Perfect. And there's 2 final details I do want to point out. When I loaded up the open hi-hat into the drum rack, I put it into gate mode. You can see the open hi-hat is in gate mode compared to trigger mode for the clap, snare, and kick. What that means is the open hi-hat is only playing while the MIDI note is playing. As soon as the MIDI note stops, the open hi-hat stops. Let me show you what I mean by that. See how the hi-hat is playing for the duration of the MIDI note? Sometimes it can be quite nice to have some of them long, some of them short, but for this particular drum pattern, I'm going to keep them all short. Like so. And then the only other thing I do want to mention, which I suppose isn't technically a part of drum programming, but something you need to factor in, is when you drag in all these samples, you'll need to balance the levels so it sounds right. You don't want the snare to be too loud or the kick to be too quiet or anything like that. And I've balanced it in Mixer View. You can see the levels here for each of the components. But of course, there are 2 or 3 different ways you can set the levels of the different components. So I won't get into that too much now because it's not important. It's just something to factor in. And there you have it, the basic drum beat for Tech House. In the next few tutorials, I'll expand it into something more interesting. Thanks for watching.